Epic Gaming Night is made possible by the support of patrons like you. Welcome to the Epic Gaming Night podcast, a podcast about the stories and relationships board games create. I'm your host, Roy Canning, and with me, as always, is Matt.
Hello.
And Rob.
Hello, hello.
And we have a special guest with us today. It is Daryl Andrews. What's going on, man?
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome.
Daryl.
So, Daryl, for anybody out there in podcast land that doesn't know who you are, could you introduce yourself for everyone?
Yeah. Well, I'm a freelance board game designer.
Mm-hmm.
Have done for the last couple of years. And then recently, about 6 months ago, I also took on as a consultant for IDW Games as a kind of head up their development as well. So, so I have a handful of games that are out in the market so far, and then a few more signed that'll hopefully be trickling out over the next couple of years.
That is true. I can verify everything he just said.
Rob's doing the usual LinkedIn looking up of our guest, so
Here we go.
Yeah.
he tries to make it as creepy as possible, which is super exciting.
Yeah,
It's not too weird. Like, I don't have your social or anything like that, but I could get it.
I'm trying not to feel like you're stalking me.
If that's what you're feeling, I think that's what he's going for. So
Yeah, let me just tell you, I'm on my way to Kitchener pretty soon.
Oh, really? Well, we got to hang out.
Well, I'm doing it to watch you from bushes and trees.
Oh.
if you hang out, that just messes up the whole stalking part of it.
Rob, I think this is backfiring. Daryl is far too nice to get creeped out by your
Right.
usual shenanigans. He's just like, oh, that's great.
Come on over. I'll have you for dinner.
All right, hold on. Like, I'll be a guest or I'll be the meal.
You'll be the guest. You'll be the guest.
See, super nice. Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about all sorts of exciting things that Daryl's been working on and the games he's put out so far and his ideas on game design. But before we do that, we can talk a little bit about some of the games we've been playing. So do any of you want to start, or I can go ahead and jump in on it?
I'll go real quick. Play Potion Explosion.
Oh, sweet.
A great family fun game. I will say for the family games, probably some of the prettiest components put together. Potion Explosion, it really is Candy Crush in a box. You have all these beautiful marbles that you're putting in this little carrying case that you assemble it together. And what's nice also, side note, when you put the game together and you put this carrying case together, you don't have to take it apart to then re-put it back together. It all fits nice and snug in the box. So that was some really cool board box design and stuff like that. But anyway, you come with all these different colors, and you are trying to get potions. And once somebody accomplishes, there's multiple ways to finish the game, but once somebody accomplishes an end game scenario, everybody else gets one more turn, and then the game is over. And it is kind of like Candy Crush in the aspect, like, let's say I've got 2 yellow marbles together, and then 1 blue marble, and then another third yellow marble on top of the blue. If I remove that 1 blue marble, the 3 yellow, the 2 that are below, and that 1 that's going to clank, they're all going to clank together, and it's going to cause an explosion. And so not only do I get that blue, but any dice that I can get a pair or more to mash up against each other, you get all of those dice. And
Marbles?
It's fun because sometimes, or marbles, sorry. And sometimes you can get crazy combinations. And some of them are kind of, surprising because part of the board that's holding the marbles is hidden. So you only see about half of the marbles that are laying out. So let's say you take one from the very top from where you can observe, and all of a sudden you see these combos coming down, and they're all smacking together. I think the most marbles I've been able to get in a single turn is close to 15.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it was a lot, bro. It was extremely lucky. That's all I'm going to say. So it's a lot of fun. Really great components. Really good fun, family-friendly game. And if you have any loved ones who like Bejeweled and Candy Crush and all those other types of games, don't tell them about the Potion Explosion app, because there is an app, because I just play that. Buy this board game and play it with them instead. I like it for the face-to-face value. So anyway, Potion Explosion.
Awesome. So you played it with your family?
I've not played it with my family yet, but I have played it with people who I would consider family.
Your second family, if you will.
My second family. I know my wife is going to like it and stuff like that. We've just been really busy. We had some flooding issues in our basement.
That's when I'd really
and
like to try to play with my wife too, because she enjoys those kind of games, and I think she would like it. So
I think she would too. So we'll
You're
see.
having some flooding issues in your basement, but you're still doing the podcast from your basement.
Well,
do you have your life preserver on?
I don't. I'm actually. I look like a sinker, but I'm actually a pretty good swimmer.
We're just gonna see Rob
but no,
start to float up.
And no, that's what we do.
We've been cleaning up the basement all day,
That stinks.
so it's cool. No, it's all right, man. The smell's gone.
Awesome. Daryl, what have you been playing, man?
Yeah, good question. I was just on the weekend at Geekway to the West, and so while I was there, I got to try out some new games and some old games, some classics. Couple older games I got to play. Goonies, which is a licensed game designed by Matt Riddle and Ben Pinchback. Also played another one of their games, Floating Market, about diced fruit, and the fruit are actually dice, which I thought was super cute.
That's cool.
I'm trying to think. I played some bigger stuff like Dinosaur Island was there, and Express Wasteland Trucker Delivery Service was there. I was roommating with John Gilmore, so it was kind of convenient to see some of his upcoming games.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a variety of stuff. Some really cool games out there. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to try out the what is it, Wasteland Express or whatever. It looks pretty sweet.
it was the first they had sent down like the production proof copy for him to see, so he received it there and he was all geeking out getting to open the box and see it all.
Yeah, I saw like the trays and stuff that they were doing for that or whatever is kind of like, is it just done by the same people who did the Mechs versus Minions trays or whatever?
You got it, yeah. Noah Alderman, he's Game Trays with a Z or Z depending on what country you are .com, and they're incredible trays. Like it makes the game faster to set up, easier to play because everything's sorted, and then even your cleanup time's like next to nothing. So all that time is erased that you hate.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, for me, I got a chance to play Mansions of Madness, and we've talked about Mansions of Madness on the show, second edition a whole bunch, but this was the first time I ever played it. My wife was out of town with my daughter, so it was just me and my son, and he wanted to play a board game, and I'm like, hey, why don't we try this cooperative game? So I actually played Mansions of Madness second edition with my 4-year-old son, and he had a blast with it. Like, after we played it, he was like, let's play again. Like, he immediately wanted to play the game again, and he was talking about how much he loved the game and trying to figure out all the stuff. I was afraid it was going to be a little bit too creepy for him, but he was like, this is weird. We played the DLC expansion, the one with the like murder mystery, Rob, remember?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, there's a ghost. I'm like, should we go talk to the ghost? Like, he was all for talking to the ghost. I'm like, I don't know if we should. That's kind of scary. He's like, no, it's okay. Let's go over here and talk to him. Like, I was letting him make all of his own choices and stuff like that. It was actually a lot of fun. He can't read since he's only 4, so I just read everything to him, read through all the stuff, and let him roll the dice and make the choices he wanted to for his character. And it was a ton of fun. So
did you read for him like in like a way where it wasn't disturbing? Like, and then the ghost says that he's just going to play patty cake with you.
I read it. I just read it as it was, and the whole time I was like, "There's creepy stuff going on." He's like, "Yeah," And it was pretty
How
fun.
did Scotty sleep that night?
No, he was fine.
Yeah.
Like he loved it. Like literally after we got done playing, he was like, "I really liked that game." And he's like, he kept talking about like there was a guy that got murdered and we had to figure out what was going on, and he like knew what was going on. I'm like, hopefully this isn't too much for a 4-year-old, but he like did really well with it, so that was super exciting. And I'm excited to play more of it with him or other things because he's
So
excited about cooperative games.
we're gonna go over one day, and it's just gonna be the three
not
of us,
going back
and then
again.
Roy's gonna be,
You're not
"Okay,
going over to my
Scotty,
house again.
let's play
Sky's just gonna be
Mansions of
like
Madness."
standing
No.
in the corner.
Scotty's gonna go like insane in the game, and then like display a level of intelligence typically unparalleled for someone that age, and just play a cruel joke where he just goes into super deep voice and just like, "Not that much," and then Rob's just going to immediately out through the garage door, and then Scotty's gonna be like, "Yeah."
That is one of the things, though. Since we're only playing 2 players, it's good that like majority of the insane effects don't like cause you to like go against the other players since you're playing with a low player count. Because that's one thing that wouldn't work since he can't read. He can't like take his insane card and read it and figure out what he should do if he becomes insane in the game. But yeah. He's going to get one and I'm going to read it. He's going to be like, "Oh, I can't read it. Let me read it for you." "Oh, you're supposed to kill me. That's what you're supposed to do. Chase me down. Make it happen."
Mansions of Madness, the new family-friendly game.
Exactly. It was funny
4
because
and up.
I posted about playing it with my son, and someone's like, "Oh, I'm always looking for games to play with my kid," and I'm like, "I don't know if I would consider this the game to play with your kid. It's a special thing."
Can I tell you about Roy's family real quick? Like this is this is not for everybody's family. Like my daughter will not be playing Mansions of Madness because then Daddy will get peed on at 3:00 in the morning when she comes in bed with us. It's like, "Daddy!" So yeah, I get it. But Roy
times.
is yeah, you're great, man.
Thanks.
Oh man, good times.
Awesome. What about you, Matt?
So I'm pretty sure all we played last week was Robot Mega Fun Dice Wars. I can't remember the full
And you got
name,
to play
whatever it is.
Masmora.
Oh, Masmora! That's right. That was the one. I was like, there was another one. There was one I hadn't played before, other than Rob's Prototype, which was pretty good. But yeah, I played Masmora. It was pretty good. I like it. I didn't expect to like it, if that makes it any better.
Masmora?
Yeah. I was judging it entirely on aesthetic. Because I just looked at it and I was like, ugh, chibies. I'm not.
You don't like the
And,
chibis, man?
Nah, I'm not into that whole particular culture, nor am I 7. So
Don't let AJ hear you say that because he was talking about how much he loved the art and loved the game.
I mean, I like the characters and stuff, but it's just like when I look at it on a shelf, I'm just like, nah.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me of that like one booth at Gen Con where they just have like girls in like scantily clad bikinis with cat ears, and they're like, "Come play this game. It's like Nekopar, the card game." And I'm like, no. I think I'll take a pass. That's what Masmora looked like. It was just like that, but in a box. And I was like, ugh.
There's games out there that are a lot worse. So.
Yeah.
I just don't like it because it's so quick. Like that's my thing.
Well, that was what I liked about it, actually.
Really.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I was the opposite.
We did play 2 players, Rob. So there's that. That makes it
No,
lot
but I've
quicker.
seen you guys play 4-player at Mace, and I think you guys played some of it at the International Tabletop Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I played it one time with 4 people. But here's the thing: that it's not a bad game, but it's the type of game where I would like to develop a character, and the game's less than an hour, and you're not really developing characters. You're just getting loot.
You could play the epic mode or the cooperative mode, which makes you like go down to the 3rd level to be able to end the game. So there's other options in the game. We just play the shorter version because majority of the time I'm always teaching someone the game. So
Yeah.
so maybe that'd be something that'd be more up your alley, is to play it epic style where you have to go down to beat the boss to end the game.
I don't know, man. I'm about to get all epic on Massive Darkness because the darkness is massive.
They give you a ship date?
I think they're gonna start shipping in June, at least to our hub. So I'll probably get it July or like a week before Gen Con or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got that. But I did get my pledge manager today for Rising Sun.
Yeah.
Did you guys get that?
Yes.
Yep. I
thought
forgot how
about-
much money I spent on that game.
Yeah. I thought about going back for the board mat, and then was like,
I got everything except for the art book.
I thought about it, and then the reason I didn't was because of like the playmat for
the money.
Xenoshift that we got.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I looked at it and realized it didn't fit in the Xenoshift box, and I was like, okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
the
gonna get
playmat
the one for
don't
Rising
fit.
Sun
Yeah,
because
the
it's definitely not
playmat.
going to fit in the box either, and
Yeah.
that makes me grumpy.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger. So. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we've been
Daryl's
playing. I guess we can go ahead and jump into our topic, which is Daryl. How's it going?
Woohoo!
Awesome.
Yeah, talking about Blood Rage, I got to be one of the playtesters for that. So
Oh, really?
Shut up, man.
Nice.
Just go home. Like, that's not even fair. Like, what do you who do you have to date to get that job? Like,
He was
Ba-
dating,
ba-
dating Eric. He was dating Eric.
basically dating Eric Lang. Yeah, that's basically all you have to do.
Awesome.
I would do it.
No, Eric actually used to live only about 45 minutes from my house, but
That's
he
right.
just
He's Canada.
but he just left. He is in process to move to Singapore to be full time with Simon.
Yeah. Is it Singapore or is it Sao Paulo? I thought the design stuff was all in South America and then production was in Singapore.
Yeah, I thought so too. But he's going to Singapore, so maybe they have multiple teams now or something.
Fun fact about Singapore, it's illegal to chew gum there.
Hmm.
In the streets, you cannot chew gum. You'll get arrested, and you can't yell.
You'll get a fine.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Singapore is actually a fantastic place to visit.
My dad lived
As
there
long
for a
as
couple
you're
years.
not
He really liked it, but he said
chewing
it was
gum
very
all the time.
quiet, and you can't chew gum.
Yeah, great food scene.
Sweet.
Boom.
Great place to
Awesome.
learn Chinese too.
So we talked about how you design some games, Daryl. What are a few of the games you've created or some of the ones you're working on?
Yeah, so some of my games that are out there right now, I did my first game was actually called The Walled City, and then I followed that up with a small card game called Caffeine Rush, which is with R&R games, and then after that, I've had a few just recently come out. So I had Sagrada just come out, which thankfully has had a really great response. Also did two of a three-part series called Fantasy Sports. So Fantasy Baseball and Fantasy Football have both had their Kickstarters successfully, and baseball is already released and football is in production. I'm trying to think what else. I did Tower of London with WizKids Games. That just recently came out. And then, there's a few more that are going to trickle out next month. My Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game Showdown will be launched on Kickstarter. It's going to be a really quick campaign, but that'll be out. Same with, I have a card game for Orphan Black called Clone Club.
Oh, dang.
So that'll be. I've done a couple licensed games before as well. Like I did Out of Time, which is a Back to the Future dice game, and I did a dice game for Space Invaders Dice, which will hopefully be coming out soon. So that's a few. I think I'm not missing anything.
So you're just like games.
Yeah, well, I mean, the funniest part was like I signed a bunch of these. I mean, a year or two ago, but it takes so long for games to come out that they're kind of not real in my head until they come to the real world. So, like, I don't want to, get too excited. So I try to almost forget about them until they come out into the real world.
That's crazy. So do you have like a lot of these games like that you work on all at the same time, or do you kind of like do one at a time and like then try to get them published or get them signed or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of co-designers.
Gotcha.
So thankfully that helps a lot with kind of the juggle. of focusing on things. Oh, I just remembered a couple more games, obviously, because we were just talking about before, but Shopping Time, which you have a copy of, and I have a game called Mine Minds, which just came out, which is with IDW. But yeah, I try to juggle them so that I'm working on different stages with different games, so that when you hit kind of a wall on the design process, you can just jump to another project and not try to force it, but come back to a game when the ideas are sparking.
That's awesome. That's a big group of games altogether. So
Yeah, it is.
awesome. So I know Sangrad has been getting a lot of buzz here recently. I guess it just came out. I know you're posting on social media that like it's getting really hard for people to find it because it's selling out all over the place. Were you shocked by like how well it's been received overall?
Yeah, no, it was actually a really surprising response. Even so the Kickstarter did well, and I legitimately, and I said this from day one, I wasn't sure if it would fund. And then it did like super, super well. And it was like, well, that's a surprise, but cool. And then I thought, well, the publisher did a really good job of like pre-marketing, and he does like really good Kickstarters, and the art and design was really well done by Peter Woken. So, maybe we'll have a good chance when it hits stores. Hopefully people will still remember it, because you always kind of worry about like Kickstarter, like people forgetting about the game kind of down the road. And then the response was awesome again. So it technically released in stores like on the weekend. And I know one distributor commented on my Facebook wall that like they were sold out from day zero. So and that was from a distributor. So that's a good sign. And I'm really excited about that. And now I'm kind of like, well, hopefully the next print run can get here fast enough. So, and I'll hold in my breath again, hoping that, well, I don't want the publisher to regret making this monster print run and then, it dies off, because you never know what people will keep liking. But here's hoping.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know what Sangrada is, could you like give us a rundown on like the mechanics and what makes the game awesome?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm biased. I think it's awesome. Hopefully other people will too. But the idea is mainly we call it a dice drafting and window crafting game. So the idea here is that you're drafting these beautiful translucent dice, and you're creating a stained glass window with the dice that you draft. They follow a few different kind of puzzly rules, which makes it kind of have kind of a Sudoku kind of puzzle feel to it. However, you're interacting with each other because you're fighting over the same dice, and you're also fighting over the same tools, and ultimately comparing your windows against each other with some common goals. So each player has one secret objective on how to score, but the other three main ways to score are public objectives that everyone is trying to draft the same common pool of dice and try to achieve the highest score. So it's a very quick game. It takes kind of 20 to 30 minutes. It plays one to four players, and I think the price point's around like $40 or less.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely cool because it has a different theme than you normally see with the whole stained glass building, which is kind of cool. And I think gives it more of a broad appeal,
That was our thing, was like originally when we came up with the mechanic, we couldn't really think of a theme, and so we just kept kind of churning on it, and we wanted the game to be really inclusive because we found a lot of our playtesters were digging it on a very abstract level, so we were like, well, we want to make sure this game has like a real beautiful feel and can be played by anyone. So that's where we took our time with it in the design process. And ironically, I was in Spain at the Sagrada Familia, which is this really beautiful cathedral. And while inside, just kind of looking at the stained glass windows, it just clicked. So
awesome.
Thankfully, I came back, and Adrian, my co-designer for that game, really dug the idea as well. And we started, from that, then it just kind of churned out. The rest of the design just flew, because then we had everything grounded in a theme, and everything flowed out of that real fast.
That's awesome. Awesome. So to talk about another one of your games, the one that I just played, Shopping Time is an app-driven game. Well, not app-driven, but it uses an app to like do up your scores and totals and things. When is that game? Is that game already out, or is it coming out here in a little
Yeah,
while?
yeah. So that's an advanced copy. There's
Yeah.
the game is scheduled for release this fall, but I'm not sure exactly the date, if that'll be August or September. But the idea of it was kind of capturing the old classic TV show Supermarket Spree.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah,
people are familiar with that, like running around trying to grab grocery items and be the fastest and get
that was a good.
closest to.
That was a good show.
Yeah, so we kind of took that idea, that gimmick, actually the very first edition, which you could still play the published version this way if you want to be active, is we used to put the decks of cards around the table, and you physically had to run around the table, and each deck of cards was like an
That's
aisle at the supermarket. And so you'd run through and you'd grab one, you'd run around. We even played around with this idea that you had a shopping cart that you had to push. It was just a card. You had to push it, and then when you ran into people, you'd like have to work around them.
That's awesome.
And you'd run around the table collecting these cards. So it was really goofy, really fun. And then we would call it our lazy version, as you just sit down, take a card, and pass it, which is really just
we
draft.
played the lazy version because
You played the lazy.
I
version.
read the rules and played how the rules said from
Yeah,
what I
there's no-
had. So I played the lazy.
There's no active version in the rules. I guess they didn't want to deal with the liability potential of people killing each other while playing the game. But the idea in the game, there's a few different modes on the app, but the general idea is that you're trying to collect 3 or more items and get closest to a retail value. However, the items are not only really random, but they're actually from different times in history. So you have to pay attention not only to the item, but try to guesstimate what the value of the item is, depending on what time in history the card says. So it might be a 1960s football helmet, or it might be a 1992 bag of frozen vegetables. And so, depending on what you're grabbing, you collect 3 or more, get closest to a value, and then you actually get to use a smartphone as your checkout process, where you scan the cards and see who is closest without learning the values of each card. You only learn the value of your sum.
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty
cool.
cool because it has
Yeah.
like QR codes on each of the items, and in the application you just like hold the phone like over each card as you go around, and it like makes the beeping noise of like a register and all that, and it's pretty fun. I played with 6 players, like both sets of my wife's siblings were there with their significant others, and we all played, and we're trying to get as close as we can to the number, and then just passing the phone around the table, everybody scanning their cards. It was pretty fun. My wife was like, "Oh, this is awesome how it works and stuff like that." And my sister-in-law is actually a cashier at a supermarket, and she's like, "Oh, it's not that great." It's like it's too much like work, but it was a lot of fun, and it's like a quick, super simple game. So we definitely had a lot of fun with it, and I went over a few too many times.
Yeah, it can be shocking how often some of those items can surprise you on the prices.
I felt like I was always like way too low or way too high, because I'm like, how much is this worth back in the day? Is it worth more or less back in the day? I'm not sure. So
Everything should be less.
you'd think that's what I hope for, but I was just like, good times. And also, it's kind of cool because it has these little coupons that you can grab, and they actually make your value go down so you don't go over. And they have QR codes on those too. So if you think you're a teeny bit over, you can be like, okay, take the coupon and scan that. So good times.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, we're really excited because we've gotten some really great response so far from distributors, and so we're hoping in the fall it'll kind of hit the ground running, and that'll be with Mercury Games.
Sweet. Awesome. So you work on a lot of different design development for board games. Can you tell us a little bit of what like that looks like with your whole working together with other like designers and designing games and then working to get those like to actual completion?
Yeah, well, for sure. I love working with other designers and co-designing. Sometimes that might mean development. Sometimes that might be right from the whole process doing co-design. I find the role of a designer is trying to kind of dream up and come up with a game, and then a developer's role is more trying to harness and kind of cut away and clean up someone else's design and help, make sure that the designer's intent is being communicated. So depends kind of where I join in on the project.
Gotcha.
Or who I'm doing it with. So for instance, with IDW, because they hire me for consulting about half time. My time with them, majority is looking at the games they've already signed and helping interact with the designers and say, how could we make your game even better? What things are kind of getting in the way, and that might include me playtesting and going back and forth with the designers. It's also kind of factoring in a big question that people don't think about when you're designing games is product development. So how is this going to be a product? How is this going to look? How is this going to feel? How much is it going to cost? And trying to work out all those practical details, and then interact with the designer and make sure that the game is not lost in that process. So that's where I really try to juggle basically half my week in development and half of my week in creation. But then that's only 40 hours, and life always seems to be more than 40 hours. So.
Which do you think you enjoy more? Do you like coming up with the game itself or honing the game to make it like really awesome?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was just asking a few different people that I co-design with what they see is my role, and I quickly learned that a lot of them think that I'm very opinionated and judgmental on all the bad ideas. which was like, oh, sweet, thank you. I'll put that on like a Valentine's card. But yeah, no, I definitely, I guess I am opinionated in that where I think direction should go, which I think is kind of a developer type role, but I try to do that even early in the design process. There's so many ideas you can go with, and it's kind of like, an idea is great, but it's really kind of worthless. It's like through the execution of making all the little decisions of taking that idea and actually making it happen. Mm-hmm. And so I think I'm more a person that says, okay, that's great. Now, like, do it, or like, let's cut it up and make it cards, or let's make it a dice. Let's, get that idea out of our heads and onto the table as fast as possible.
That's awesome.
Do you, like, you said that you like to start that process early. Are you the type that you'll let it flesh out to see if it's going to work, or do you just kind of cut it and like, do you have that type of skill? I'm not saying that you don't or anything like that, but some people, they want to see if they can add elements to make something else work, and then some people just like that. Like, for example, Emerson Matsuuchi, whenever he's creating a game, as soon as he sees an idea, if it's not going exactly to his plan, he cuts it out. He doesn't even worry about fleshing it out. He just kind of cuts it out. Are you that type of person as well, or before you start to make your big edits and things like that, do you want to feel it out a little bit?
Yeah, no,
that's got to be tough.
Yeah, no, I see what Emerson's saying there. I probably bring things to the table sooner than someone like Emerson would. Like, he'd probably smarter about not burning people out with bad ideas versus I'll literally put almost anything on the table for a few minutes. But for me, the key is just to see people like interact with it. And then like once it's outside my head and I can visually see people like messing around with the components, even if it's a bad experience, I get like really useful information from that. So I'll just end it really quick, but I will definitely put bad ideas out there. I wish I didn't, but I put them out there and then I work on them. I think I probably give games a few chances before, probably it's like a 3-strike policy of like, if it hits the table a few times and it doesn't find fun, then it's dead to me. And if there's some fun there, but it's stuck, then I'll put it back, kind of on the back shelf to simmer and then come back to it. But if it doesn't find fun pretty fast, there's no point. Yeah, just let it, kill your darling, let that baby die. So.
And you have like lots of like irons in the fire when you're doing this too, so you can pop around to a completely different game and stuff like that most time, right?
Yeah, well, and so I think that's why probably I'm pretty opinionated, is because then I do see something working really well, and I expect that of like the next game. So if it doesn't, that's why I think I believe in, like, if that's not the idea, like, walk away, because there's probably going to be a better one Like it's not a matter of not having enough good ideas. It's a matter of not having enough time. So if something's not coming together fast enough and you're forcing it, people are going to feel that. They're going to sense that. And so, yes, you got to do the work, but B, if it's too much work, then you can probably find another idea to work on.
Gotcha.
Do you, sorry. Do you, all right, I'm just going to ask anyway. I don't care.
Do it.
Do it.
So Eric Lang, your roommate or good buddy and stuff like that. There was this one, it was like 2 years ago. He had like 20 plus games that he was working on, and he got frustrated one day and he literally deleted them all. And these were all games that he had been working on for over a year and a half, I think he said. And you know, I'm not going to go into his reasoning or anything like that on why he did it, which I loved it, but are you that type of person, or do you simmer on it and bring it back?
It's funny. Yeah. I totally know what you're talking about. And I asked him semi-recently if he ever regretted that. And he jokingly said, well, there's probably a few things in there I probably shouldn't have thrown out.
Yeah.
Which I think is hilarious. But no, I think there's healthy times to purge. I think there's healthy times to say, like, if this hasn't made it yet, you're probably kind of kicking a dead dog. I have a few games that I would love to come back to, but just because I'm so not motivated to go there, that's probably saying something.
Yeah.
Although on the flip side, it's funny. I think it was Gil Hova just last month or the month before. He had a bunch of designers, well-known designers, bring together their very first board game design. And like the game that you probably cut, the game that, or at least like your first game that you worked on that you walked away from. He told all these designers to bring those together and pitch them at each other. And it's funny because the game he brought, it's evolved so much that I played it this last weekend, and it was good. It was like he changed it a few times and tweaked it, and now I was like, dude, this is a game. And he's like, I know, this is weird. Like, I'm excited because he's had this game kind of kicking around in the back of his head for so long. So different people, different strokes. I probably lose stuff or pillage it for parts, so I don't really like stay organized enough to remember that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Gil, he still had it on file and evolved it to an interesting little game.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. So what do you think a designer should focus on when designing and developing a game?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, games are meant to be fun. So follow the fun. I think that means different things for different people. So fun could be goofy, fun could be, brain burner, whatever it is that you find fun or what you think is clever about your design. That's where you need to focus. And then things are going to get in the way. And as long as you remember what was originally fun, just keep trying to make sure that's the star of your game. And that might mean reordering things, that might be cutting things, but just keeping the spotlight on the fun. Another way to say that, I think, is as long as your game has some interesting decisions. So it doesn't have to be brain burner decisions, but as long as your game keeps people engaged. So I was talking to one person, and I can't remember who I heard this from. Probably, I think it was Matt Leacock, but this idea of a flow channel where every game can either make you crazy anxious or make you completely bored, and you want to stay kind of like that halfway in between. That you want to trigger people to have these moments of anxiety and then relief from that anxiety. But if you go any too far on the tension of the drama and stress, you're going to cause anxiety, and if you go too light, then you're going to just bore people. So if you can stay in that flow channel, that's the sweet spot for any game.
That's awesome. Awesome. Do you have any tips on shaping your creation while designing? Like, how does that look for you as you're coming up with the ideas?
Yeah, I mean, shaping pretty early on. I'm a practical person, so I'm just going to say like cards or dice or board or try to try things out and again, like, I'm a big proponent of getting it out of your head and in front of other people and including yourself. So I'm all about like moving bits and writing stuff. Like my prototypes are hideous. I write on pieces of paper and scribble all over the place, and most people don't know what's going on when I show them it, and I'm like, "Can't you see it?" And no, they can't because it's hideous. But it's still helpful to get it out, and then once it's out, I think it's important to slightly modify and work on, you know, the art and aesthetic and communication of the game, but don't get bogged down on that. Don't invest money in that. Just get it to a point where people aren't being confused or bogged down by always commenting about the looks, and then keep iterating. Test, iterate. You know, I think it's really important to play with different people. Don't play with just your family or just your best friends, because
or just your gaming group.
Just your gaming group, because they have a certain taste, and they might even be really good playtesters, but that's still not enough. I know early on I used to playtest all the time with my friend Senfeng Lim, who's co-designer the Bamboozle Brothers. They've done awesome games like Akrotiri and Junkart and Belfort. Like,
love
really
Junkart.
great. Yeah,
top
really
10 game easily. Oh my gosh, I love Junkart.
So
yeah, so they're incredible designers. But the funniest thing I found out was that I learned that it was not helpful for me to have them involved in the playtesting process early on. I really did better if they joined in the playtest process pretty late, and they helped with the fine tuning, because whenever I got them involved earlier, because I respected their opinions and because they were so persuasive, they would help influence the game, but it would always turn a game into a game that they would like, not necessarily what I would like. And as a designer, your goal is to express yourself, not to express someone else. So it's important to listen to other people, but also listen to a lot of voices and then make the decisions yourself of how do you interpret their opinions, how do you interpret and how do you fix things that aren't working.
How does that sort of thing work with a co-design?
Yeah, the fun part about that is if you like to argue, you get to argue a lot. And I love to argue, so that works for me. It also means that if you both agree, you've come up with something good.
Gotcha.
So that helps. That if one person's not feeling something, you need to learn to respect and understand why. It's funny, like my co-designer Adrian, he was just commenting about something. We were looking at some art for a game that's coming out hopefully this year called Jungle Joust, and you're like riding 3D rhinos,
that's cool.
like in cardboard with lances, and you get to bet
awesome.
on them. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Josh Capel's doing the art, and he said something's wrong with this, and he just like pointed at something, and I was like, but what? And he's like, I don't know, something's wrong. It was just like, something's wrong. I'm like, well, that's not helpful. Like, you're just delaying things. And it's funny, I've learned to just now like also say to myself, no, but if he's feeling something's wrong, like, trust his gut and try to figure out what that is. And it was hilarious because when we ended up printing out a copy, and it came out super dark. You couldn't see anything. He was like, that's it. It was too dark. And like, okay, well, sometimes, having a co-designer is just that extra pair of eyes, or that other person who knows the game intimately and can feel or see things that you're missing because of your blind spots.
That's awesome. At what point in the design do you like start writing down rules or like planning out like exactly how the game's going to go?
Okay, I am the worst for this. Most people... I would say most people should write the rules from the beginning and just keep like editing them. That would be.
Thank you. That makes sense, right?
That makes sense, and
that
is wise. I do not do that at all. Because I'm arrogant and I think I got all the rules in my head, and B, because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to keep rewriting the same rules in different ways. So those aren't good reasons, but they're the truth. And so because of my arrogance and laziness, I'm always the person who pitches a game to a publisher and they're like, this is awesome. Can you send me the rules? And I'm like, nope. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I gotta go type them up. Which is always a huge delay, because it's nothing like getting a publisher really interested in your game and then saying, I'll get back to you. But but I'm starting to get better at that. My co-designers are noticing that I'm horrible at it and are sometimes compensating for that and saying like, well, I'll start the rule file and if you will at least help edit them. So that's helpful sometimes. But I really do think it's important to keep a rule file going all the way. And I think publishers, especially if you're going to pitch, that's one of the first things a publisher wants to see is rules. So
Gotcha.
Now, when you do that, do you have to? Can the rule book just be a generic blank slate? Like this actually means turn. This actually means that, or do you have to kind of have it fleshed out with some, with some intricacy of like maybe the theme, the story behind it as well? Because how some people write stories into their rule books.
Totally. I'll often put like flavor text here or introduction here. Sometimes it's helpful, or sometimes I think it's a real score if your theme and your rules do integrate. Like it's more intuitive to remember things when they tie together. Like for instance, like for Sagrada, you can't put two of the same color or two of the same number next to each other, but instead we refer to numbers as shades. So low number is a light shade and a high number is a high shade. And so we're saying like, oh, that green 5 is a dark green versus, green 1 is a light green. So in the rules, we start referring to like you can't put two of the same shade or two of the same color next to each other because you want it to look beautiful. So things like that help people intuitively kind of like lock in those rules.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that makes sense. So, okay. Whenever you can do that, I think that's helpful. But mechanically, and especially for a publisher, they probably just need brass tacks. Like, how do I set it up? How do I do things? I need to try this thing out and then kind of build from there.
Yeah.
Have you had publishers like change your games a lot that you've designed?
Yeah, I've had some that have been total theme changes. I've had some that rules have changed. I've never had something so massive that I've like wanted to be disassociated with it, but I know people that have. I know people that are like, that is not a game I'm going to promote because they wrecked it. And to some degree, that's part of picking a publisher is who do you trust enough that they're going to keep you in the loop and involve you through the process. I think I've learned from that enough that I'm more picky about who I work with than I ever have before. And picky doesn't mean big. Picky just means like, are these people I want to work with?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you've got your game and you've been working on it for a long time and you've play tested and all that stuff. When do you think a game is fully developed and ready to go to a publisher?
Yeah. It's funny. My answer to this has changed over the last year. I used to actually think that a game only needed to be about 80% done. And then I would have argued that you should show a publisher because a publisher might change enough of your game that why not just develop it in the direction they want? Like show a publisher and say like, I'll finish it in the ways that you like, if there's certain rules that you prefer, yada, yada. I'm realizing as great as that is in theory and practice, a lot of publishers don't want to do that. They want a game that is done. And then if they want to change things, they'll change things, even if that means reversing 6 months of your life, because they still want to see the finished product because there's a difficulty of seeing how the whole game comes together if you don't finish it. So how do you know you're at a point where you can pass it off? I mean, you're never actually 100%. You could always keep tweaking. So if your play tests are kind of consistently giving about the same results, if you're not changing any massive rules anymore, if you're playing it and the overall experience for people is positive, if people are requesting to play it, those are all indicators, I think, that you're probably at a place where you need to at least get it in front of some publishers. And then if publishers say, this is good, but just not for us, that's a good sign that you're there. If a publisher looks at it and says, this isn't even close to being ready, then, back up and tweak it some more. That would be my advice, is listen for that and maybe even specifically ask a publisher, even if the publisher says no, do you think this game is ready, though?
Gotcha. Awesome. So you do game consulting with IDW. What all is like involved in game consulting with a company like that?
Yeah, so I've done a few just project to project consulting before, where companies had asked me either to be involved with, ironically, even though I'm bad with rule editing, I can do it. I just, like I said, I was lazy and arrogant. So, but anything from also, like I said, playtesting, promoting, things like that, I've been involved with. Originally, I connected with IDW because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shadows of the Past, designed by Kevin Wilson. He made a massive, incredible Turtles game. The problem was he made scenario books that could, I don't know if you're familiar with the game, but the way it works is it's almost like choose your own adventure, in that depending on the end result, that'll affect the next scenario.
That's awesome.
And so the cool part is there's lots of interactivity. The problem is that's a lot of playtesting.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So he was like, I invented this game, but I do not have time to playtest every different combination of scenarios. So I've known Kevin for some time, and he had recommended me to do that. So I got hired on for that project. And from that being a real positive experience, then I got brought on for another project with IDW, and they finally said, you know what, it's probably just cheaper if we just hire you than keep hiring you on these project by project basis. So that's for them how it worked out that I got brought on. The other thing that's kind of cool is because they brought me on for consulting on a more regular basis instead of from project to project, is now when I'm at shows, because I know I'm consistently developing stuff, they've said, well, if you see something at a show that you'd like to develop, well, then let us know, because you're the one that's going to have to work on it. So, you should have some input on that. So the nice thing is now, they're helping me attend shows, and part of my time I spend playing other people's games. I can just offer, playtesting feedback, but then also I keep an eye out for things that make sense for them. So that's been really cool as a gig for me, and really helped the freelance lifestyle be possible, because going from month to month where it's just totally dependent on what you might get signed can get a little risky sometimes.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. So they work with a whole bunch of different IPs, and you said you've done several IP games before. Is there certain things that you consider when designing a game with an intellectual property?
Yeah, it's been a real learning experience. I didn't realize there's so much to the process of working with IPs. There's a lot of rules. Anything from learning that you can only use their font in certain ways, or that you can't mix like characters, or like there's just like a lot of little details that you don't even think about. You're like, oh, let's mix these two worlds together, and they're like, no, they could never see each other because episode 72 does this, or so like you really have to respect the license, and you have to keep coming back to them for every step for approvals, which is very time consuming, but they have a incredible license, so it's really cool to get to work with them. The other thing is, because licenses cost a lot, then sometimes that has real practical ramifications on a game. So and sometimes then they'll splice up the license in really funny and weird ways. So like one that I learned about, and I learned about it before I worked at IDW, but it involves IDW, was because I already mentioned I'm friends with Sen and Jay, and I'm friends with Eric Lang. They both made Godfather games.
Yes.
And so I remember thinking, whoa, that's really weird, but found out later that the Godfather license was just split up in multiple ways. And one was that one was a dice license. So the IDW got rights for a worker placement dice game, and then the CMON was given a minis game license. So follow that logic, then like those are the games they became. However, an example of how it was difficult for some games versus the other, the dice game that was given to IDW was given something like a dozen pieces of art that they were allowed to use. The CMON game was given about 100 images of art. So if you're going to make certain things work, and you only have like 10, 12 images that are at your disposal, and then the other has 10 times that.
Was that
That
because of the way it was split, or was that because of the company size?
And do they charge like different things for different licenses?
I don't know. I don't know the
Simon
charging,
is big.
but Simon is big. The funny part is, maybe more importantly, it was the type of game expectation that they had, right? So if you're doing a minis game and you think there's going to be a whole bunch of cards and yada yada, versus dice game, you think, oh, you don't need that many assets. So
that makes sense.
That becomes also a factor, and then also just certain licenses are easier and harder to work with. So some licensors will be like, oh, we'll make you art. Some will send you a style guide and say, like, don't break this. I even was having a conversation with someone last week who does a lot of license work, and he was saying he submitted something and they said, oh, it looks too much like our style guide. And he was like, what? Like, I thought that's the whole point of a style guide, is to follow it. And they're like, no, we were looking for you to make up new stuff. And so that's a weird one. But they were like, yeah, we already have that. We were hoping, because you have really good artists at your disposal, you'd create some content that we'd like to use in the future. So
wow, that's crazy.
So sometimes you can't do right. Like, there's just, you find out in the process, things get changed, timelines and everything get really messy with IPs. You got to be willing to move fast when there's green lights, and move slow when you got to wait or know other things to work on. I'm still figuring that out. So IPs is like a whole different beast. It's like having maybe like 10 more bosses somehow involved in your process. So
that's crazy. That's awesome. What I learned: never try to make a game with an IP. Just make up your own thing.
Well, it is tricky, but on the flip side, it is pretty cool to be associated. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of like lost my mind when I got to do something in Back to the Future world. And even though, like, originally I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make like a gamer's dice game. Then very quickly they were like, no, this is for mass market. Like, lighten it up. In every step of the process. They were like, we're looking for Yahtzee. And it's like, no, I'm not going to rip off Yahtzee. So there is a dance there, but now I can always say, like, hey, I'm part of Back to the Future world, like this little tiny spot. So
hey, I'm part of Back to the Future world, and it would have been really awesome, but I made Yahtzee. No, I'm just kidding.
I made the Yahtzee version.
That's awesome. So once those like connection lines are open with certain IPs, can y'all be like, hey, well, we have this other thing we want to make, or are they more like this is the one type of game we want you to make? Do they normally come to companies with the IP and a design in mind, like the kind of game they want, or do y'all have to like petition the IP owner to get a game made?
Yeah, that's a good question. So actually, right now there is a significant licensing expo happening in Vegas.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So a lot of people right now are fighting over all those licenses that are maybe fair game and trying to schmooze their way to some deals. One of the kind of advantages, for instance, that IDW has is actually they're probably most known for their comics.
Comic books.
Yeah, so they're the fourth biggest comic book company in the world, and they're actually the number one comic book company when it comes to licensed IPs. Mm-hmm. So because of that, and putting out like 1 million comics a year, the idea of making a licensed game and having 1 million comics advertised for you sounds really sexy to licensees. And also, we already deal with a lot of them. So if it's a license that we already deal with, we already have a working relationship with. So that's a couple of factors for IDW and why that works. And like you said, do people keep coming back if they worked with you and it goes well? Yes, absolutely. I mean, like anything, if you have something that works well and is profitable, then you usually don't waste your time shopping for other options. You go back. So, for instance, for us, there's the obvious ones like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but that's in-house. But a new one that IDW has that they announced is Atari. And so, for instance, they've already announced 3 Atari games coming, but we have 5 already in the hop room. We're already discussing and trying to figure out the next few. So that becomes like, if anyone has a game in like the Atari universe that they think could work, that makes sense to pitch to IDW because it's not going to go to someone else. Like, the likelihood is it would either not go anywhere or it would be like a knockoff if it got pitched to anyone else. But IDW, there's a chance that it would actually get the licensed version.
That's awesome. So if you could make a game with any theme or any IP ever, what game do you think you would make in what theme?
That is a toughie.
And it could be even IPs that are owned by other companies that you would probably never even get. What do you think you would go for?
Yeah, I mean, well, one that I always thought would be super cool, and it's funny because we do the comic, but Hasbro has the rights to it, is Transformers.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't mean like modern Transformers. I mean like the old school classic. I
Like the cartoon, like the 80s one?
Yeah,
That
the
would be
80s
awesome.
cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so awesome. And it'd be cool if you could do minis that did transform.
Yeah.
So,
Bro.
like,
Oh.
right.
Dude,
And
like
then-
actually have like Transformers in the game where you're like, okay,
Right.
now you're vehicle mode and you can move this many
Yeah.
spaces.
Exactly.
Oh, wait.
Awesome.
Right?
What if you had the Transformers and then you could like transform them up into dice that you would then roll, and then what you had you could keep and then like foil back out the figure?
There's so many
That
ways
would be
you
crazy.
can go. There's so many ways you can go.
Oh god.
So that would be a dream license, I think.
Gotcha. What's Hasbro doing with that? Just making toys?
I feel like the toys and the movies is just so profitable.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
games are so small in comparison. They can just keep making like Risk, Transformers, Monopoly
Hey.
Transformers.
Hey, I own 2 different versions of Risk Transformers, so.
Hey,
Do you
and
really?
it's selling. So.
Yes.
Rob,
I own-
Rob
But
buys
have you
every
played
version.
throwback
either of
one.
them? Have you played either of them?
I own the throwback one that's actually got the 1980s cartoon drawings on there, and
Oh,
then I
wow.
also own the one that came out after the very first Michael Bay Transformers movie with Bumblebee, and
But have you
and-
played either one of them?
I played the newer one. Well, I don't want to say newer. The throwback 80s version one is actually a newer game that came out, but I played the newer license for the first Transformer one with Risk, and it actually had some pretty cool components on the board because like it had these force fields where you could, you know how when you play Forbidden Stars you can make the shields move and dictate how you did that in the map.
Yeah.
There was parts of that on the map where you can move stuff around where you block an area off and unblock an area. So
Oh, don't get me wrong. Risk has made some great strides. I mean,
I
you
have
look at
22 versions of Risk.
you look at Risk Legacy. You look at
Yes.
something like the Star Wars Risk with the Gambit kind of inclusion,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
stuff like that's really great.
Even Lord of
And
the Rings Risk is a
Yeah.
it's a good game.
I love it. I love that. So I mean, making a Risk is actually on my bucket list. So
I'd buy
I had
it.
to talk to Hasbro.
I'm trying.
There you go.
Daryl
I
is
own a lot
making
of-
the next Transformers Risk. That's what we just found out. Because there you go. Two
Uh-oh.
things off your bucket list. No.
Dang, that would be awesome.
And it will look nothing like Risk. No, I'm just kidding. Just like the Star Wars one. No,
Risk is not a bad game.
No,
it's cool. Awesome. So, a little bit about you. What is your favorite tabletop game of all time?
Real quick, there is a wrong answer.
There.
So,
Wow. No, that's favorite. That's Ooh. I don't
mean,
know.
It could be from way back in your past. It could be from whatever you're really hot on playing right now. I mean,
Okay, well, I mean, I did just get to see. This is just going to be for nostalgia's sake, but I just saw the new Restoration Games version of Stop Thief,
oh, nice.
Okay.
and I was a huge fan of Stop Thief. I probably have like 6 or 7 copies of them that anytime
Really?
I see them at like a used store, I have
Mm-hmm.
to buy it. It's kind of like Catcher in the Rye or something.
There you go.
Yeah.
I have to pick it up. So that would be up there. Another obscure title that I would reference is San Marco. It's designed by Alan Moon, and I think it's his best game ever. So
Ooh, better than Ticket to Ride.
better than Ticket to Ride.
Bang.
It
But did
came
it
out
make
this,
more money than Ticket to Ride?
Well, you know what? It would have if it didn't happen to come out the same year as Carcassonne.
Gotcha.
So it lost to Carcassonne for game Spiel des Jahres. It was a nominee, but it lost, and now nobody knows it.
Ah. So what are the mechanics like in it?
Well, one of my favorite mechanics that I don't actually utilize a lot is I cut, you choose.
Mm-hmm.
So it does that, and then I think Venice in general, the whole island and area control is really fascinating. So it has that element. I'm a big area control fan, so even like El Grande is one of my all-time greatest favorite games. So yeah, those are it's got a real nice classic feel, very Euro, but it plays quick. And like I said, the cutting of the cards for actions, I think, is just really well done.
Awesome. Cool, man. Cool. So, is there any things that you have upcoming or anything else you want to talk about or promote?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that I'm involved with that I really love to promote is the Meeple Syrup Show. Myself, Senfeng Lim, co-host, and we usually have Dylan Kirk and a few others that rotate with us, and we discuss game design. So if anyone's interested in hearing more about game design, that's usually the focus of our weekly show. I miss it half the time because I'm traveling to cons, but I hear it exists, even though I haven't been on for the last couple of weeks. So that's one thing I'd give a plug. I'd say also...
When does that come on?
Yeah, so it's live on Thursdays, 3 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time. But even if you just want to binge watch it, I tell people you can find it on YouTube or iTunes.
Sweet.
If you want to listen or watch or cherry pick your favorite guests. That's a great way to just see what topics or which designers you'd like to hear from. And then just in general, if people are on Twitter, you can find me, Daryl Mandrews, Daryl M. Andrews. And love interacting with people on there. You can find me on Facebook. Don't be shy. Just add me. LinkedIn, I guess. I haven't even. I'm afraid what my LinkedIn even says. I probably haven't looked.
Bro, real quick.
Here we go.
Don't take this weird or anything like that. It's not meant to be weird, but bro, that's a pretty cute picture of you. Did not expect
Thank you.
to see. I mean, I love the Canada sweater.
Thank you. Thank you.
But that clean shaved face with the nice glasses and everything like that, that's a young man right there that I would I don't know. No one can date my daughter, but I wouldn't suit you immediately.
That's right. That's how I got my amazing wife. So,
Yeah.
and then I grew up
Look at
here.
this guy right here. He's somebody that I would.
Did you just say you got your wife with your LinkedIn page?
Yeah, you know it. That's just that picture. Just that picture.
That's an achievement right there.
So yeah, I don't know how I follow that up. So that's probably a good point for me.
Awesome. Well, what's your next game that's going to be coming out from Daryl Andrews? What's the next thing we should be looking for?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about. In June, I have 2 Kickstarter campaigns that'll be launching, and they're only for a week.
Oh,
one will be for the upcoming Turtles game. And the cool part is that I believe I heard the rumor that we might have a Kevin Eastman sign thing for anyone who signs up in the first 3 days. So people got to get in on that. First 3 days. I want to say it's a comic, but even if it's just a picture or something, I think that's pretty awesome as an exclusive. And then also in June, I'm going to have my Orphan Black Clone Club game coming out on Kickstarter. Again, just for a week, but that's going to come with a couple extra exclusives if you get it on the Kickstarter. So
are you able to call it Orphan Black, or do you just have to call it Clone Club?
No, it's Orphan Black Clone Club. The cool part about that one is I co-designed that with my friend Bryce Hunter, and he is actually head of VP and digital at Boat Rocker, who makes the TV show.
That's awesome.
So it was pretty fun to make the game. We made the game before this last season is coming out, and we were just kind of talking about. It's a real simple game, but it was cool to kind of brainstorm through the new season and what the show's all about, and then come up with a game that really celebrated what we think the heart of the show is about. So it's a simple tile laying DNA strand game where you care about a couple of the clones more than anyone else, and so you're trying to extend their DNA strand longer than anyone else. So
Cool.
Simple, easy, kind of tile laying. Think almost like Suro-ish, but in reverse, and it grows out from the middle, and it's
That sounds kind of crazy.
So you're having these Kickstarters that are like 1 week long. What's the philosophy behind like these super short Kickstarters?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to work, but the goal is actually the goal that I was told. I'm like, it's always fun to be the guinea pig. But IDW is doing both of them, and their goal is they want to spread the word and promote them, but they also want to support stores. So they really want to just get the word out there, use Kickstarter for its great promotional opportunity, but they also want people to support their local game stores. So if you want to support the Kickstarter, great. If you don't, well, at least we've spread the word out that you know about the games, and then you can pick up these games through your local game store.
So distribution sales have pretty much already been made, and now this is a promotional tool.
Yeah, that's the hope, is just to get the word out there, and a few maybe fancy gimmicks for the hardcore fans that might want like a little extra.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool.
That's smart.
Awesome. Well, we've got all your info. You talked about your Twitter and such. Is there anywhere else they can find you, or anywhere else they should look up for you, Daryl?
Well, I mean, just reaching out to Maple Syrup, the Maple Syrup Show, in any way, you'll get a hold of me and Sen. And again, that's another way. Or I would say at shows. So I'll be at the Origins show, Dice Tower, Gen Con, probably Board Game Geek and Essen. So if you're at any of those shows, look me up, and we can play some games and chat. And if I can help in any way, encourage you in your game on how to get connected. I mean, if it's an IDW game or if it's someone else, I love just playing games and seeing people grow in the industry. So I know I've had a lot of support from some really great people, and so my thought is a rising tide helps all boats. So let's just spread the word around.
That's awesome.
One of those great people is Aaron Robb.
Yes, you know Aaron. Awesome.
He speaks very highly of you.
He's a good dude.
I think he's reading off your LinkedIn again.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, I am.
Still creeping me out.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Now you get to witness the awesomeness of Rob thanking one of our awesome patrons on Patreon. We have patrons who help out promote or help support our podcast. So thanks so much for all of those. And now Rob is going to thank a specific one of our patrons.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much, Daryl, for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate it. But I want to apologize to Daryl and also to Roy and Matt and myself, because we have lost at life when you compare what we've done compared to this gentleman who is our Patreon backer tonight. We're not even on par. His LinkedIn profile is LinkedIn. That's how amazing this person is. If you don't know who I'm talking about now, you must be oblivious to the world, but I am talking about the one and the only Jason Rolfe. And people like to call him Ralph, but I like to say Ruff, because that is a handsome dude right there. Jason Ruff. I'm not going to say Rolfe. I just forget it. He is the lion of lions. He is that solo pack lion where he doesn't even need lionesses or anything like that. They come and go as they please, but he does all of his hunting. He does all of his sleeping. He does everything on his own. He is amazing. We have got, first of all, we have the greatest fan base, and one of the leaders in that fan base, one of the generals, one of the people. If this guy says anything, I'll just do it. I don't even care. If he says slap my mama, I'll say how many times as I slap her. Jason Rolfe is the man to follow. He doesn't get anything wrong. He doesn't. When people think he gets stuff wrong, they change their answers because they realize that he's correct. He's that amazing. Jason is the type of guy that I'm not going to say that I think about at night, but his name has come across my head a couple of times late at night when I can't sleep, and I'm just thinking, man, Jason Rolfe. Man, that's something that I want to sit next to.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much to all our amazing patrons.
About Jason.
And sorry you had to witness that, Daryl. Thanks again so much for coming on the podcast. We stream these Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time at youtube.com/Epic Gaming Night. Make sure to hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Epic Gaming Night. And also make sure to check out Favorite Game Friday and our reviews over on the Dice Tower Network. And it's been a blast. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
And Daryl, real quick though, if you want to support us on Patreon, I'll say even nicer things about you.
Duly noted. I don't know if that's a threat or a good thing.
No, it's a good
There
thing.
you go. There you go.
It's a good.
Awesome.
I'm excited if you were to back us because the things I could talk about you and I and maple syrup, that would just. It would
Oh my
so-
goodness, that'd be terrifying.
No.
Oh boy.
Awesome, man. So that was the
Fine,
whole
man.
show. So we're still live on YouTube right now, but I'll edit that out of the audio part. But yeah, cool. Thanks for coming on. It was a lot of fun.
Man,
Awesome.
that slapped
No,
my mama
seriously.
apart.
Slap my mom. Yeah. What? I like that you said while slapping her mom.
Oh yeah.
Ask
How many times?
How many times? Not.
Full
I
swing.
asked how many. Just I would already be slapping her.
Already going.
One of
My
our
dad used to say
Ooh,
stuff
boy.
like that to me. He was like, "Boy, if I ever told you to jump, you better ask me how high as you're going up." Yes, sir.
what was I gonna say? One
As
of
if
our
you were gonna control it
patrons
at that point.
said they were in their car listening to the podcast when you did like the whole end thing for them, and they said they almost like ran off the road. They almost wrecked. They're like, "Oh my goodness, I almost died when you were talking about me on the podcast." It was pretty fun.
But
It was
in
pretty
a
fun.
way, I also saved their life.
Nice. Well, guys. Well, thank you. This was fun.
Hey, thanks for putting up with us, man. We appreciate it.
No, seriously, great time.
Thank you for talking about
Absolutely.
game design. Honestly, like we've had a bunch of people on, but some of the things you were saying, like literally, have never been covered by any of the other
Yeah,
game
for sure.
designers that we've had on.
Yeah.
So it was always I love getting new takes on stuff because there's a lot of stuff to just learn.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah, anytime. Seriously. And if you're trying to get a hold of anyone, let me know if I know people or whatever. Any way I can help.
Sweet. Awesome, man.
So
Well-
this is what networking is.
Yeah.
Now I just need to use that to get a job.
Nice. Cool, guys.
man.
All right. Well,
All right,
talk
have a good
soon.
one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yeah.